video, I am going to tell you the contribution of the three mathematicians in the field of mathematics. But let me introduce myself. My name is Ria Didivina Garcia, BSED 1 Filipino major, batch 2.
Sir Isaac Newton.
Sir Isaac Newton was born on January 4, 1643, but in England, they used Julian calendar at that time, and his birthday was on Christmas Day, 1642. He was born in Wolstorfree by Colsterworth, a hamlet in the county of Lincolnshire. Newton is considered by many to be one of the most influential men in human history. In 1687 publication, the Philosophy Naturalis Principia Mathematica, or simply called as Principia. Principia is considered to be the most influential books in the history of science, and it dominated the scientific view of the physical universe of the next 3 centuries.
Isaac Newton's contribution. The average slope of a curve.
The average slope of a curve. The initial problem Newton was confronting was that, although it was easy enough to represent and calculate the average slope of a curve, for example, the increasing speed of an object on a time-distance graph, the slope of a curve was constantly varying, and there was no method to give the exact slope at any one individual point on the curve, effectively the slope of a tangent line to the curve at that point. As the distance between point A and point B1, B2, and B3 becomes ever smaller, the approximation of the slope of the curve in point A, the green lines, becomes more and more exact. The derivative of the curve gives a value for the slope as the distance between point A and the other becomes infinitely small but not zero.
Method of Lorentz.
The opposite of differentiation is integration or integral calculus, or in Newton terminology, the method of Lorentz. And together, the differentiation and integration are the two main operations of calculus. Newton's fundamental theorem of calculus states the differentiation and integration are inverse operation, so that if a function is first integrated and then differentiated, or vice versa, the original function is retrieved. The area under a curve can be approximated by summing the area of a number of the rectangle or slabs down within it. The greater the number used, the more accurate the approximation. So the green area below is better approximation than yellow. The integration gives an area based on an infinite number of slabs and so many approaches the exact area.
Generalized binomial theorem.
Generalized binomial theorem. It describes the algebraic expansion of powers of a binomial, or algebraic expansion with two terms such as A2 and B2. He made substantial contribution to the theory of finite differences. Newton was one of the first to use fractional exponents and coordinate geometry to derive solution to algebraic equation with integer-only variables. He also developed on what we call Newton's method for finding successively better approximations to the zeros or roots of a functions. He was also the first to use the infinite power series with any confidence and etc.
René Descartes.
René Descartes was born in La Haye-en-Touraine, France on March 31, 1596. His mother died when he was very young, so he and his brother were sent to live with their grandmother. His father believed that a good education was important, so Descartes was sent off to boarding school at a young age. Descartes was a good student and eventually earned a law degree at the University of Poitiers in 1616 at about 20 years of age. During his time, he began to develop a sense that it is important to use our ability to think, to reason, and to discover truth. He believed that reasoning should be based on evidence. Descartes is the philosopher who said, "I think, therefore I am." It was in geometry that Descartes first proposed that each point in two dimensions can be described by two numbers on a plane, one giving the point's horizontal location and the other is the vertical location, which have come to known as Cartesian coordinates. In short, Cartesian coordinates describe the position of a point in two dimensions by giving its horizontal location and a vertical locations. He used perpendicular lines or axes crossing at a point called the origin to measure the horizontal and the vertical locations. As a point moves along a curve, then its coordinates change, but an equation can be written to describe the change in the value of a coordinates at any point in the figure. Descartes' most important contribution to mathematics is a rule of signs. It is a technique for determining the number of positive or negative real roots of a polynomial. David Hilbert, born on January 23, 1862, in Kaliningrad, Russia. He died on February 14, 1943, in Göttingen, Germany. He is a German mathematician who reduced geometry to a series of actions and contributed substantially to the establishment of the formalistic foundation of mathematics. His work on 1909 in integral equation led to the 20th century research in functional analysis. David Hilbert is one of the great leaders and spokesperson for the discipline of mathematics in the early 20th century, but he was an extremely important and respected mathematician in his own right. Hilbert produced algorithms for space-filling curves which completely fill up higher dimensional spaces such as squares and cubes. A recursive algorithms can be used repeatedly to create a continuous and non-intersecting curve such that every pixel in a grid is traversed once. As a young man, Hilbert began by pulling together all of the strands of number theory and abstract algebra, before changing field completely to pursue studies in integral equations, where he revolutionized the current practices. Perhaps his greatest legacy in his work on equations, often referred to as his finiteness theory. He showed that although there were an infinite number of possible equations, it was nevertheless possible to split them up into a finite number of types of equations which could then be used, almost like a set of building blocks, to produce all the other equations. Hilbert space is a generalization of notions of Euclidean space which extends the method of vector algebra and calculus spaces which any finite or even infinite numbers of dimensions. Hilbert space provided the basis for important contribution to the mathematics of physics over the following decades and may still offer one of the best mathematical formulation of quantum mechanics. So that's all for today's discussion, and thank you for watching.